Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And as always, I'm going to date stamp this. It's year 4, blog 8, or in legacy numbers, blog number 164. And it's dated the 13th of April, 2025. And next week will be interesting because it's Easter weekend. In fact, I think many of the schools are in their break because I know that parliamentary is in recess. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. I normally look outside and it's actually a dull day today. We've had some absolutely lovely weather all the way up to today. And it's a bit chilly. And even my mother noticed it was chilly. She's currently in her chair with a blanket over her and a cardigan and the heater on, one of those little ceramic heaters. So I'm hoping that's keeping her warm, and I'm expecting the occupational health nurse any moment, but then again it could be in half an hour. It's a bit difficult to say because they only give me a 2-hour slot. And it could be any time in that slot and any time before or after, so it doesn't really help too much. But I usually say a little bit about how my week's been, and I've been trying to think of different words, but for every 2 steps forward I've made, I've gone 2 steps back, so it's been pretty stagnant. Challenging, but stagnant. And not worse. So, that glass half full is still with me. I hope that's recognised in everything I do. I've tried to do some videos. I've tried to be the best for my mum. I've tried to do work. I've tried to keep everything comfortable and, keep my physio going and shopping going and everything else. And it's all a big muddle as I try and sort of get some sort of routine. I need to get a routine. Maybe it's just me and I shouldn't look for those, but that's what I'm trying to do. And hopefully I'll get there, I'm probably really not looking forward to Easter weekend. It's just going to be norm for me, really. And that's a pretty sad thing. I did notice my camera go out of focus there, so I'm just going to go onto the properties and turn autofocus off. Do bear with me a moment. Should have done that just before I started recording. I did a volume check. So hopefully the volume's better for you. But yeah, focus has been turned on for some reason. I didn't touch it. I think it's probably because I've got 2 cameras. You alter one, it alters the other. But anyway, challenging, sort of stagnant, but there we go. But let's get the news out the way, shall we? And we'll talk a little bit more. So as always, we talk about the war, and I've written down the following. Trump demands control of pipeline in Ukraine carrying Russian gas. The US demands control of this key pipeline in Ukraine, used to send Russian gas to Europe, according to reports, while Kiev negotiates a minerals deal with the Trump administration. Prospects of a breakthrough deal between Washington and Kiev are scant, given the antagonistical atmosphere of the talks. Economics agree that there is little chance of the proposal being accepted by Kiev. Yeah, so here we are, still talking about deals, still talking about peace talks. While there are no peace talks and ceasefires, the war continues from Russia's point of view. I have no idea whether intelligence is still crimped. All I know is that there was that disastrous meeting between Ukraine and America. He left or was frog marched out of the White House, and since then he hasn't been back, as far as I know, or been telephone stuff. This was weeks ago. I thought this thing was supposed to be going fast. Nah, Like I say, never any good news in the news, really. But maybe there is, because we're going to head into the UK news. And I did see this big story, or should I say it was one of the bigger stories that was on the news that grabbed my interest when I was doing a shopping walk in the week. Proposals are likely to go ahead for the Universal theme park in Bedfordshire in the UK. Yes, so came out the blue a little bit. Universal, the big theme parks of America that I've been to in Florida and California, going to open up in Europe, and they've chosen the UK. And they've chosen this site that used to be a brickworks. It looks like a derelict fields and all that sort of stuff around. And they're going to build Universal theme park there. And it should open in 6 years, generate thousands of jobs. And most of the towns and villages around that place will employ the staff from those surrounding towns and villages. So, good news, really, should you say. The only thing that I didn't see in the news was they didn't really talk about environmental too much. I wonder how much electricity and how many trees are going to be felled and all of that sort of stuff. But hey, I didn't question it. I sort of like went, hey, jobs, theme parks, all of this sort of stuff. And when we consider that a couple of weeks ago, there was a Welsh theme park that was closing down. This can only be good news. But it is years ahead. Anything could change. Has the planning permission been granted yet on this? Probably not. But anyway, let's continue. Another news story. The Manchester Arena bomber has attacked 3 prison officers who now face life-threatening injuries. Don't know anything else other than that. I think it was atrocious. When I read about it, not only have I been in prisons and youth remand centres, I wonder even now still how inmates can attack prison officers with a variety of tools that are handcrafted and made. And this says life-threatening injuries, so it's not exactly going to be with his fists. Although terrorists are trained in all sorts of ways. All I know is a very sad day. The prisons never get good press. It's always bad. So yeah, another bad story. Next one is heard all around the world. It's all to do with tariffs. Trump and China tariff battle continues, while the rest of the world is mostly been set now at 10%. So across the board, where there used to be all different tariffs for different countries, there seems to be a blanket now of 10% for the majority. And Trump doesn't like China's fighting back, so keeps increasing the tariffs by 30 to 50%. And it's gone up twice, I believe, this week, of which the retaliation from China is to increase theirs twice. And it just continues into funny figures. Yeah, what can you say? In fact, the whole economics has said that this is bad, but apparently the share index went back up when the tariffs were blanketed at 10%. I think they've been unsteady as the China-America tariff battle continues. But that's likely. I mean, what else can you expect? And then one that's sort of like near to me or close to me. The Birmingham bin strike has now hit its 5th week. And neighbour councils are helping out as the rubbish continues to grow. Yeah, it's all to do with money and strikes and all that sort of stuff. But now it's got to the 5th week. There are rats that are increasing. There are dead animals appearing in the rubbish. As much as neighbours come in to try and help, people keep bringing their rubbish out to the same place and dumping it while they're there, which means that where they're supposed to be picking up just what they see, they're having to go back to the depot more often because more and more suddenly come out of the houses, which they've got to do. I mean, if I saw a truck at the end of the road and I had piles and piles of rubbish out there, and I'd kept it inside because there was no room out there, and suddenly a truck turned up and started to clear it, I'd take some more out. You know what I mean? But it's just, like I say, an awful, horrible situation. Labour keep diminishing it down as being a minor blip, and yet they're in its fifth week. No, this is a pretty big thing now, Labour. Start putting your finger out and getting this strike finished with. And that was the news. So normally I talk about my week, and like I say, it's a bit difficult because it's been all over around the houses in regards to getting things sorted. It started off really on Monday, where I tried to get this chair that was defective back to the supplier, and he sent more things that he couldn't do, or things that this seller couldn't do, to things that he could. And so I eventually just decided, right, I'm going to phone Amazon. I ain't having any more of this. And I spoke to Amazon and I told them the story. If you remember from last week, we got a defective chair. We requested another chair, and he would only give us another chair after picking up the old one, and that would leave my mum in a bad situation in regards that she'd have nowhere to sit. Not only that, I've got no box anymore, so I don't know quite how that works, and a number of other little things. This guy turned around and said, I've looked at all the conversations between you two. I can see that the seller is not looking at this from a due care point of view, that your mother is elderly and vulnerable and all of this sort of stuff. I've spoken to this seller before. He's usually quite good. I'll act on your behalf. What I will do is I will insist that the chair is picked up and another dropped off. I will make it clear that it has to be done same day. So then I repeated on the top of that and said, can I choose another chair? And he said, yes, you can. And I said, well, I mentioned that because, to be quite honest, I'm fed up with this seller. I'd rather go to somewhere else and get a refund off of him. In other words, he gets nothing from me. And I'll get one of the recliner chairs that's motorized, the ones that tilt and help your elderly person up and ease them out of the chair, and they also recline back, and it'll be motorized. He said, you can do that. I said, now, if I order a chair, they're usually here within 1 or 2 days. So what do we do about pickup date? And he says, well, what I'll do is I'll start the process of refund at the end of the week. You just leave everything to me. And he said, I'll send you an email about the label. And that's when the next penny drop occurred. I haven't got a printer. I've been working from home. So I happened to mention and say, yeah, I've got no printer. How can we do this? He said, don't worry. He said, I understand that. Yep, you can't leave your mother. You're working from home. How about I get the driver to print a label for you? I said, that would be fantastic. I tell you what, Amazon, exceptional service. If you could do all of that for me, I'm very, very happy. And we left it there. So Tuesday came along. Couple of things happened on Tuesday. So the first thing that happened was another communication from the seller. And he said, I had to use a shop to print the label. For which I then had to phone up Amazon again, and I said, look, I only phoned yesterday. He wants a date, a specific date, which I can't give him. Because if you look, I've ordered another chair at a greater cost. I'm not quite sure when that chair arrives. It could arrive today, but it's more likely to be Wednesday. And he's saying that I need to go to shops to get labels printed. And I can't leave my mother. If I could go to a shop, I would. But your Amazon representative that I spoke to yesterday said he'd get the driver to print this off. So I don't get why this seller is being just so damn awkward. He said, leave it with me. So again, I just went, exceptional service, thanks very much. I ordered some spanners the day that I ordered the chair. And the reason for that is that I've got some jobs that need doing, and I haven't got a good set of spanners. I've got gaps in between the ones, and the ones that I've got gaps on are the ones that I need. So I ordered some spanners. And what happened was, after the Amazon guy turned around and said he'd handle the chair, and he'd get the reiterate about the label, these spanners turned up and they were left outside. And if you remember rightly, all those other weeks, I turned around and said that I didn't want stuff left on the doorstep, and haven't done for years and years and years. And I've complained and all of that sort of stuff. So I just mentioned as an afterthought, I said, just to let you know that something got delivered this morning and it was left outside. It was 7:35 this morning. It was left outside. And that's against what I requested. And he turned around and said, look, you're being put through the ringer here. I'll give you a discount of 35% against those spanners. Now, it only comes to about £6.50. But, I just had to turn around and said, look, again, exceptional service from you. If you can manage to get this damn seller off my back and listen to bloody good reason on why I'm not being awkward. I'm just explaining what the situation is. And he said, leave it with me. Now that day, the chair turned up. So that was great. But the trouble is, you've got a lack of space. So I've got the old sofa chair. Then I've got this chair that's defective. And now I've got another chair that's a recliner. And, I've only got such a sort of a space downstairs. So I did manage to sort of not damage this chair anymore and sort of turn it upside down and put it into the well of the old sofa chair. So it seems like it's okay. And I got this other recliner chair sorted, got that assembled, tested it. Perfect. Absolutely spot on. As long as my mum felt comfortable in it. That was an unknown. I then contacted Amazon and told them that we could go ahead with the chair being picked up from now, to be quite honest, but I recommended it would be done from Thursday because I'd like a day's worth of testing with this new chair. Now, on this same day, I got an unusual call from the county council. And the county council phoned up and they said they wanted to have a quiet word with my mother without any of the siblings being present. And I said, I don't know who you are. I don't know why you'd want to have a conversation. I'd want more information. And this person didn't even introduce themselves by name or anything. Apparently, it's because of an overheard conversation in the hospital in regards to power of attorney. And I remembered exactly what that conversation was. So on the Saturday, before my mother left on the Sunday, I managed to speak to the doctor and we were talking about degenerative memory lapse and what the CT scan was. And this was 2 or 3 hours earlier. My sister dropped the bombshell that I could lose the house because if worse comes to worse and your mother has to go to a nursing home, then things like how to pay for a nursing home come in, and the government can take your house away if the house is not in the name of the siblings. In other words, if they remain in the name of my mother, then basically they would sell the house. So, of course, I asked pertinent questions to the doctor. I said, what did the CT scan? You'll have to go back a couple of weeks and just listen to what the answers were. So I retorted back to this person. I said, look, I don't like this safeguarding word. And how is power of attorney a safeguarding issue anyway? And I'm not going to say you can't come, but are we allowed to be in the house while you're interviewing? And she said, yes. And I passed the phone over to my sister, who was actually in the living room at the time, and said, can you deal with this lady? Because she's quite angered me. But she's only angered me because she's mentioned safeguarding again, and I don't see how this is a safeguarding issue. She carried on the conversation, and we arranged for this person to come to the house Wednesday. And also, on the Tuesday, another phone call came from an occupational nurse from the council in giving me the good news that the hospital bed would be arriving Wednesday. So everything was all happening at once on Tuesday. It was an absolute nightmare of a day when you consider that I was supposed to be working as well. So you can imagine I'm trying to get a routine and I can't get any sort of routine because every time I try and sit down and work, I was being pulled left, right and centre. But anyway, the good news was this bed was arriving. Fantastic. I asked, will they be helping to take the bed upstairs? And they said they would. Brilliant. So that's pretty much the end of Tuesday. And on Wednesday, it starts off with everything being okay with the riser. And the bed turns up about 11 o'clock in the morning. Before 11 o'clock in the morning, I'd moved the barrier that was on the stairs to stop my mother going upstairs. I'd lifted the bed on its side and took the headboard off, separated the mattress, and made it so it was easier for them to slide it up the stairs. Now, I've got sciatica, so I have to take things sort of like steady, but I can undo a couple of screws and I can sort of like move things around a little, but I can't push things upstairs. So they took that upstairs, and then they brought the bed in. It was, oh my God, a huge thing really, but it was separated into little bits. They assembled it in the living room, fed the wire from the plug socket round a table to the bed, assembled it, and then showed me how it rose and lowered and tilted up and back down, and it even moves the feet up and down, so you can have a sort of like a zigzag type thing, you know, so your ass is a bit lower and your legs are raised and your top can be raised, just like you've seen in many hospitals. And I thanked them for that, and they left, and I put the rubber sheet over the top of it and put the single sheet on, put the duvet back on the top, put the pillars on there, and then my sister turned up, and within half an hour of my sister turning up, this county council person turned up. And my sister and I sort of like went in where the bed was, and we were just talking about it while this lady was talking to my mum. Now, my mum's deaf, so it's a bit silly, really, that we can't be in the same room, because we heard virtually the whole conversation. And the questions that were being asked was, has your son or daughter ever presented you with documents for power of attorney? Have you been coerced in any way in regards to having your money handled by your son or daughter? Has anybody presented you in the last 2 months your bank statements, and do you know where your bank statements are? We can hear it all. And it made us feel both ugly. Specifically me, I think, because I'm here 24/7, and the only thing that's been talked about safeguarding always seems to be me. Me because I found my mum on the floor, me because the ambulance crew asked me to go and get some liners, some pull-up liners, and mentioned that I'd left my mother by herself while I did it. They were here in the bloody house, the ambulance crew. And now power of attorney and coercion in regards to money. What you have to understand is that we haven't even had a conversation with my mother yet in regards to this. These have all been conversations that, if worse comes to worse, what are we going to do? My sister doesn't want to see me out on the street. She's on the understanding as well that she's got her house. And she also wants the house to be left in the family name. So that, if it was in my name and I died, it was in my will that I'd pass it on to her siblings, which I would do because I haven't got any children. So all of this is nothing to do with the county council. This is overheard conversations and them putting two and two together and thinking that Midsummer Murders is going on. So it pissed us off. Anyway, we had a nice pleasant conversation with the lady as she left. She said she'd asked enough questions. We told her that my mum has got CAP, where she's got fogginess of the brain. The CT scan has shown that she's got dead cells in her brain, and that we're working on trying to keep her memory as active as possible, and that we have not in any way, shape or form talked about finances in the last four weeks. All we've been doing is making my mum comfortable and trying to get her well. And when can we see the report? And she said, in a week or so. So, that went. So what happened then really was I had my conversation with Ian Hill, the Ramblings, in the evening. Had a great time with that. I did explain to Ian that I might need to cut it short from my point of view because I'm tired, very tired. And to be quite honest, I could do with it not going beyond midnight. And also, apologies, but I would need to keep bouncing back and forth until the nurses get my mother into bed. Once my mum's in bed at 9:30, then I'm free. Do you see what I mean? I can be around as long as needed, but I'd like to cut it short if possible, for which he totally agreed. And we had a great time, and we talked about everything, and the questions all got read out, and I think it ended about 11:30. And that's still 3 or so hours of totally talking and fun, which I appreciate Ian for, because it takes my brain away from health and safety and keeping my mum okay and work and everything else. So I'm appreciative of it totally, and we had a great time. And if you haven't heard of Ian Hill, the Ramblings, please look in my description. You'll see that he's got his own channel, and we have a whale of a time on Wednesday. And really, we then turned to Thursday. And the only thing that happened on Thursday is that I noticed on the bed that there was no head rails. Now, one of the things that this county council person said was that the bed would be an occupational health bed. It wouldn't have long rails, but it would have hoop rails at the head, where your pillars go. And the reason that those are there is to help the person who's trying to get out of the bed to have a hand grip so that they can pull themselves out of bed. So I I phoned up the lady and I said, you do know that this was delivered without handrails? And she apologised, said it should have come with some. However, it was good that I'd phoned, because she was going to phone me as well at the end of this week and asked for a second meeting on Tuesday to assess the equipment that's arrived and to see whether it's suitable for purpose and that my mother is getting along with it okay. And I said, by all means, please do come. It would be nice if you could come with the handrails, but if you could fill in your report that it wasn't there, at least you can put a foothold of trying to get that sorted on your visit on Tuesday. So we booked an appointment on Tuesday for the morning, and that's going to happen this week. On top of that, a weird call came through from Every. Now that's a shipping company like DPD and Parcel Force and all of that. They said they were outside my house and that they were ready to pick up a parcel from me. I said, there's no parcel for you to pick up. I am expecting a parcel to be picked up by Amazon because I've got a chair to be picked up. But so far I'm waiting for a pickup date, and I'm waiting for a label to be created by the driver. They said, this Every driver said, we don't print labels, and all I've got here is pick up a parcel from your house. And I said, okay, all I can ask you to do then is go, I'll phone up Amazon, blah, 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 blah. For which I did, and I called Amazon again. It was the third time. And I happened to mention to this operative exactly what the first two calls were on Monday and Tuesday. The guy and I were both laughing about it. I said, look, you couldn't write a Hollywood script on this. He said, leave it with him. And what he would do is he would make it in no way could you misinterpret it that the onus was on the seller to make this right. He then told me that the refund would start off when the chair is picked up. I said, I'm happy with that. I'm not bothered. Said, we've got another chair. It's all about my mum being comfortable. I know eventually I'll get the money back. But I think that this guy now is being awkward to an extreme. And he agreed. And I got another note from the seller on the Friday. So we moved to the Friday, and Friday is the day where I look forward to the most for my mother, because she used to go and get her hair done on a Friday, and that's where I have to then drive her down to the hairdressers and get her hair is done, and then I go and pick her up. But it's a long process because I have to get the coat on my mother, Zimmer frame her all the way to the front of the house, get her into the car, put the Zimmer frame in the car, drive her down to the car park that is not for customers, walk her down a ramp all the way to the point of where the hairdressers is, then walk up to my car, drive back, and then do the reverse when the hair is done. So it's a half-hour job to do getting there and a half-hour job to get back, and however long it takes in between. But that all got done swimmingly. No problems whatsoever. I was so proud of my mum. She walked the distance across the car park and down ramps to the hairdressers and walked back. And she looked lovely when her hair was done. And she felt, as always, she felt so much better in herself when her hair is done. Wonderful. And I got a note in between that being done from the seller saying that he hadn't arranged for anything to be picked up and that he would pick up the chair on Monday. And I reiterated, thanks very much, the chair is ready now, but Monday is fine. And I reiterated, please understand, it is your responsibility on the label. This is no longer my responsibility, and you need to speak to Amazon, not me, in regards to the label. Haven't got a reply back. Wonderful. That, apart from Saturday, where I prepped the blog, spent time with my mum, is the end of the week, really. Other than the stuff that I've done on YouTube, I did a lovely video this week that I enjoyed immensely, which was opening trading card packs. I mean, still got the boxes here, look. I'm not saying go and have a look at that. But I am saying I had the most fun doing that. And I said at the end of it, I haven't got the bug yet to buy more. I thought about it and went, you know what, I do. I got the bug again. So I looked around for the cheapest trading cards you could get. And I happened to find some Spider-Man ones from China. Believe it or not, I've never bought trading cards from China before. They've always been the Americanized, bloody expensive ones, right? And these boxes were 10 packs, 10 cards in each pack. I think that's what it was. And they were £14 a box. Oh my God, when you consider that those other boxes I bought were 6 packs, 6 cards, and £29.99 or 30 quid a box. I've bought 3 boxes for the price of 1 box of this other stuff, and I've got 3 times the amount of cards. Over 3 times the amount of cards. So I bought those. But the one thing I wanted to show off when I did my next trading card unboxing was these were what they call blaster boxes. You'll see it actually says it somewhere on it. Yeah. Annual collect blaster exclusive cards, right? Blaster boxes are cut down hobby boxes. The hobby boxes contain the most packs. The blaster boxes are expansion packs, right? Less and cheaper. And I hadn't opened up a hobby box. A hobby box is what I used to buy. So I found a hobby box that I thought I'd like to do, and it was an Avengers set. And these were on sale. But it was from an American seller that also has a European arm. So the European arm would send them to me, which meant I wouldn't have to pay duty, and so therefore is cheaper. So I managed to get a hobby box for a little bit less than what I used to do back in the day. I think it was $69.99. Yeah. And those arrived as well. So the Spider-Man cards arrived, and the other ones have arrived. So there's going to be some more trading card unboxing. If you like that sort of thing, please join me. I'll try and do those where I can. And that's the end of the sort of like beginning of my blog, where I then move into the shout outs. But as you know, I'm looking after my mum. So I'm just going to pause, and I'll be back after I've checked on my mother. Won't be a minute. Okay, so we'll move the blog straight along and we'll get to the shout-outs. I'm waiting for the occupational health nurse, but hasn't turned up yet. But I did spend a bit of time with my mother and got her a cup of tea and made her comfortable. And just want to thank everybody that's left a shout-out. Now, it's been a bit of a difficult week because if you remember last week, there's a couple of people that are in a very bad situation at the moment, and I don't expect them to comment, and some of those are some of my biggest commenters. Totally acceptable, but it might make this a little bit shorter, but no less enjoyable, hopefully. So here's some of the people that have left a comment for me. All thank you very much, and for asking and how about my mother and everything else. And they are Robert's Retro Gaming, Ian Hill The Ramblings, Colin Jones, aka Ponder, Martroid, Down the Rabbit Hole, Seb's Place, Carl Todd, and Jambon. Like I say, you'll see a couple of names there that you'd go, ooh, why aren't they commenting anymore? Well, I can just let you know that I've actually spoken to my good friend Denny. He's perfectly fine. It's just that he's working really hard and got a number of things going on in his life at the moment. And as you know, Steve's Gaming's in as I mentioned last week, very bad situation with him. And although I've tried to contact him, haven't heard back, but his situation is dire. Not death dire, but dire to the point of, oh yeah, it's one of the second probably biggest stressful things that can go on in your life. So yeah, don't expect anything from them. But to all those people that have left a comment, and to those that have left comments on regular videos that I do, thank you so much. So we may as well move, therefore, on into the comments. Hopefully there'll be a couple of questions. We don't know, do we? And the first one, and these are in no particular order, is from Carl Todd. And it's got, "Hi Del, sorry for not asking any questions recently. I've been snowed under with work since it's crunch time to get a new product release out. Lots of long days, working into early mornings. I hope that things are settling down with your mum. I may have missed your deadline this week." No, you haven't. But you can roll this over into next week if need be. "It was good to see your trading card unboxing. Thank you very much. I'm happy you got some good Spider-Man related cards. Here is a question. There has been a lot of media that has come and gone, such as laserdiscs and mini discs. Is there any that you particularly miss? What 4K discs do you hope that Hammer will release?" Well, the Hammer one is the easiest one to really comment, because from my point of view, the two 4K restorations have been lesser known titles, although Captain Kronos really should be considered a higher film than it is anyway. But I'd really like to see some of the classic ones. Mondo will probably tell you that he thought that one of the next ones would be a million years BC, and I'd be very happy if that was done. But for me, if you've got two that are lesser known, the third one being a well-known one, I'd like to see something like Dracula or Frankenstein or something like that coming out to show that they're doing the bigger titles. But I also recognise that Hammer, being who they are, will need money coming in from the revenue of those other two to probably fund the third and fund the fourth and fund the fifth and so forth. And they'll want to do a good job as well, because getting the negative or the interpositive of those classic films, film degrades. So depending on how you're doing the restoration, you don't want to do it again. So they'll want to take their time and get that sorted. So I'd rather them take their time and get it right than not. But that doesn't get over the fact that I'd like to see one of those classics done. So that's an easy one. Media that's gone that I might miss. Well, I never had actually mini disc, believe it or not. That passed me by. So I'd have liked to have tried it, and I suppose I still could. I could easily go on eBay, buy a mini disc player, buy a couple of mini discs and all that. But I go to Tecmo an awful lot, and I've seen all the technology that's gone, and he's reviewed the equipment. I loved my time with Laserdisc, but 4K is obviously the better picture quality, and it does the things that a Laserdisc can or was doing back then. So you've got perfect still frame pauses, you've got scripts that you can still frame and go through every page of the script. Picture in picture is there. You know, I just don't think they exploit that an awful lot with the medium at the moment. Maybe because they think it wasn't very popular, but I used to love it. So I don't miss things like tape much. Records are still with us. CDs are still with us. Some of the formats that were on CD, like 12-bit digital recordings and all of this sort of stuff, have gone by the wayside as our players now incorporate into our amps that have Dolby Atmos. So I don't think there's anything that I'm really, really missing. Because like I say, in the car, I'm quite happy to have MP3 or whatever it is, because the car system, I've got Bose in my car system. And it even MP3 still sounds lovely in there. But I'm sure I'd probably still want lossless when I'm putting stuff in my car. but I don't travel around too much anymore. I'm working from home. So am I missing anything? Not really. I don't think I can really answer that, because I can still listen to my audio and my video on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K. I've still got my Laserdisc player. I've still got a record player. I've still got a tape deck. There's only the fringe stuff I'm missing. I've even got all my old MP3 players plus my iPod. So, yeah, I'm not really missing anything. So, I'm sorry, it's a bit of a half-hearted answer, really, for you, but it's the truth. I'm a bit of a hoarder, and I've still got most of my stuff. Maybe you can enlighten me on one that you may be missing, or that you'd like to see come back, or you'd like to have in your collection again. Salute, my friend, and thank you very much, and I hope I've filled you in with my mother at the beginning of this blog. And we move on to Jambon, my friend Jambon. He's put, "Hi Del, thanks for another excellent vlog. Was so nice to hear about your mum enjoying that massive dinner. Appreciate the update on the Switch 2. He's put 2. I've been a bit out of the loop on gaming news, so thanks for keeping me up to speed. I do really like the original Switch, as it's a great way to enjoy a lot of interesting and fairly cheap indie games. Thanks for answering my question about streaming services. Speaking of which, I recently watched the excellent Man on the Inside with Ted Danson on Netflix, and has inspired another question, if that's okay. So before we get to the question, I'll just answer a few things there. Yeah, keeping you up to date, not a problem. I tried to do that. The one thing I missed was on the Friday before last week's blog, I did buy the FX range of pinball tables for my MetaQuest 3. It was all over the news at the end of last week. And it was Mainmeister that came back in one of his live streams and said, "Oh, are you aware that it was out?" And I'd actually bought it day one. So I actually just hadn't mentioned it in my blog. And I believe that would probably bring a smile to Jambon's face, because we used to go to Pinfest together, and the first time we didn't go was last year, where I went to the Zap event. But it wasn't because I went to the Zap event, it was because something was going on in Jambon's life, which is still going on now. So, you know, these things occur in your life. But yeah, wow, was I impressed with the Pinball FX in VR. That was great. Really enjoyed that. And the only tables I didn't buy were the Universal tables, which is Knight Rider, Xena, and Battlestar Galactica. Otherwise, I've got all the other tables that were there. They're very costly. I don't agree with that. But for what they were and how much they cost, I don't feel bad that I bought them, because I've got many, many hours now of playability for the tables that I've bought. And one of those is the Twilight Zone, which is my ultimate favourite pinball table. All I'd need now is maybe a Spider-Man one. And maybe there's a couple of others that I liked at Pinfest that I'd like to see in VR. So, yeah, I'm very happy with the purchase. So his question, because I think I've answered everything there. Oh, the streaming service, yeah. There's nothing more to add in regards to that. And Ted Danson, by the way, had a video podcast, and he interviewed Frasier. That was the last time that I've actually listened to Ted Danson, so I'm interested in this Man on the Inside. But he continues. His question is, which Cheers character would you most like to have a pint with? Take care and all the best to your mum. Oh my God, what an interesting question. I love Cheers. I think, I'll have to check that in a moment. I think, Woody would be a good one for me to have a chat with a pint. if Frasier wasn't available. You know, obviously Frasier would be my first choice. Well, Frasier and Lilith, to be quite honest. And if it wasn't those two, I think I'd go with Norm, you know. Trouble with Norm is he'd want a pint off of you every time you ordered your own pint. He's a right little hoarding git with his drink. So it'd probably cost me a bit of a fortune to have a drink with him, to be quite honest. But Norm would be an interesting one. You know, as much as I love all the other characters, you know, in fact, actually, no, I'd have a drink with any of them. Do you know what I mean? But I think those would be my top tier ones. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, Ted Danson. Sorry, yeah, Ted Danson would be a good one, as would the later characters that came in. They're all good. I'm sort of like trying to think of the names, but actually, to be quite honest, the niceness about Cheers was the rich complexity of the characters. So they're all damn good. Lilith would be an interesting one. I think that Lilith and Frasier having a pint or a short with them, you know, a sherry or whatever. That would be very, very interesting to me. Those two bickering, my God, I'd just be sitting back and just listen to them. It'd be great. Salute to you, my friend. Thank you very much. And what an interesting and great question. Thank you so much for that. That was brilliant. So we now move down and we get to Robert's Retro Gaming. Let's see what my friend Robert in Canada has got to say. He's like gaming royalty. You'll hear about his channel a little bit later on. But he's put, for a change, I watched this week's entire blog on a Sunday. And then I probably forgot all about commenting. See, he always puts it on a high and then bloody knocks it down with a low look. Bloody hell, what's going on with you, man? Keep your chin up. I hope things with your mum have settled down and that she is in a good state as she can be. Don't forget to look after yourself. I'd suggest trying to arrange with your sister that she cover off a weekend here and there. Yeah, that'd be nice. It would give you a break and it would give you an appreciation of how much effort it is for you to be the main caregiver. And believe it or not, that's going to be probably happening Wednesday because work want me to go into work for one whole day at Bicester on Wednesday. Keep your ears and eyes open for the next blog on how that goes, because it's a test or a sort of like putting a toe in the water to see how it would go if I could make it into the office for one day, even if it was one day a month. So that's going on this Wednesday. So he says at the end, all the best, and I'm looking forward to hearing this week's updates. And I hope you're in the middle of this and having a big smile on your face as I mention you. And all I can say is thank you very much, my friend. You've always been close to me. You've always been a good supporter of me. Very appreciative of everything. Thank you so much. And I'll do my salute to you. And hopefully we'll have a chat and we can have a chat about Steve and what we can do and all that sort of stuff in the future. But anyway, we get to Ian Hill, the Ramblings. And what has Ian put? He's put, my good friend Ian, who, by the way, has got a good channel. And as you know, I do a live one with him. He's put another great video blog, which I always enjoy. Things are a bit more positive now, and my best wishes to your mum. I'm glad you're able to do some trailers. They are like a treat, the icing on the cake. Yes, I brought some of the trailers back last week. We'll see what happens at the end of this one. I was going to go into town today, Friday, but I changed my mind. I felt some fears about falling over. I've got to try and overcome this. It's one of the dangers of being inside for such a long time. It's the only place I feel safe. I'm sure I will overcome all of this in time. I've no problem going to the local corner shop, which is less than a minute away. Sometimes I overthink things and should just do it without any thought. I downloaded a film called Opus 2025, and in my opinion, it was awful. It was about cults, which should have made it very interesting, yet it seemed flat to me, very predictable. This kind of horror is not horrific. We have seen it all before. I would go into a rant, but I'll let you be the one who has a good rant. LOL, yes, because I'm forever doing rants on his channel. I did watch a film called The Man with the Iron Heart, 2018, set in Czechoslovakia, before and after the Nazi invasion. We saw the rise of a disgraced German naval officer who joined the Nazi party. He ended up through his gathering of intelligence on the number of Jews to being responsible for trying to implement the final solution. The story of the resistance was also told, which planned and implemented his assassination. It was all very tense and was successful, but the Nazi retribution was savage. Lots of men, women, and chicken were killed. Men, women, animals, and children were killed. It was very disturbing seeing all this, but made a very powerful film. So my question this week is, what disturbing film have you seen which made a big impression on you? All the best and have a reet grand time. Yeah, Freudian slip there, but, I think we've mentioned all of this before, Ian, but you know full well that I was disgusted by Cannibal Holocaust, with the killing on camera a turtle, one of the big ones of that country, and you can see it was in distress all the way through it, which is horrible. And I think horror probably has got to be the ones that's going to be disturbing and leave a bigger impression. I think I'm not going to mention a particular film, but I will mention a particular franchise that back in the day disturbed me, and that was the I Spit on Your Grave franchise, for which there are a number now. There's I Spit on Your Grave 2, I Spit on Your Grave Deja Vu, I think there's even an I Spit on Your Grave 3. The whole franchise is all about rape and revenge, and rape is always a difficult one, and disturbing. Makes, as much as there is rape of men and women, the ones that are disturbing, the ones that stay with you, are the ones where it happens to the woman. Makes me feel disgusted to be a man. I don't have any intentions or inclinations to act in any way disgracefully like that towards women. So, of course, it does make me feel itchy, awful, unclean, I remember a film called Man Bites Dog. Similar reasons as I Spit on Your Grave really left me feeling very uncomfortable. And there was another one that was really weird. I think it's a David Cronenberg film. It was called Crash with James Spader, which is about people that go around observing car crashes and then having sex in their car while they're observing what's going on at the crash site. I haven't seen it in a number of years, but I remember me feeling quite dirty, and I found that very disturbing. David Cronenberg always was very psychological, but I do remember that one standing out, and I like James Spader. I'm not saying it's a bad film. What I'm saying is oh my God, that made me itch. You know what I mean? So I think those are the ones that stand out for me, Ian. And thanks very much for a fantastic question. Thanks for having me on a Wednesday. I have a reet grand time every time I'm there. And it was great to see everybody there this Wednesday. So salute to you, my friend. And we'll move to Colin Jones, a.k.a. Ponder. And he's put, only just finished this on Friday morning. Been so damn busy. End result will be worth it. He continues, a bit of a scare there with your mum, but glad there were no further issues. Glad you've patched things up with your sister, at least to some degree. You can still get measured sweets at some specialist shops, as you mentioned. Yes, we can, and there are some in my town. I think those awful sweets you're talking about are chocolate limes. Yes, they were. And the other ones I didn't mention were the fruit salads for the blackjacks. They were lovely. You can definitely still get curly whirlies. Yes, I know. They're nothing like what they used to be. And they come, I've seen them in the sort of like Christmas stocking boxes as well. They're still a kid's favourite. I really hope things work out for Steve. Yeah, you and I both, and I am concerned. My next cycle video will be in 4K. And once I sort out my audio issues, which are just distracting, my future game video should be 60 hertz for emulated or 50 hertz for real hardware. Absolutely marvellous. I'm not moving to 4K myself. I'm quite happy with 1080p. But that's absolutely outstanding. And you'll be head and shoulders above us all with your super high quality. Let's hope you put plenty of makeup on, you scruffy bastard. My little joke to you. You've got a question. My question in 2 parts. What's the most janky arcade game you've ever played? And what's the most janky game on any platform that you've actually enjoyed? Janky. Yeah. It's a word that's been coming around now quite an awful lot in the last 18 months, meaning poor quality or unreliable. And when it comes to the arcade games, I know of obviously unreliable arcade games, so I will mention the one that I know is very, very unreliable, and that is iRobot, for which Jeff Minter is reimagining. And it might even be out now. I need to recheck that because I've taken my eye off the game a little bit. Excuse the pun. Eye off the ball, really, I should say. In regards to what's out there at the moment. So I will check that out. But yeah, iRobot was crashed. It had some weird things going on. You could even draw with some of the objects. You could go into a mode and see all these objects drawn, and they could be drawn over the top of themselves and get some interesting effects. But I believe most of the machines were in a shocking state of affairs when most people got to play the game. So I take it the controls were a little bit of low quality, which might have aided towards the jankiness of it all. But yeah, iRobot is one. And I count Laserdiscs as one big, put it all together in one thing, janky. Some worked really well, some didn't. Some just didn't like the simplicitness of the control scheme, with just looking out for a flash on the screen, and whether you just moved left or right, it was very linear. But I will say that Laserdiscs were fiddly, and the fact that the technology didn't work very well with Laserdiscs. But like I say, there are always exceptions to the rules. Game-wise, the one that comes to mind, and as soon as I was thinking about this before I went into the arcade rant just now, was Vampire Bloodlines. I really looked forward to this game, Vampire Bloodlines. It was called Vampire the Masquerade, to be quite honest. Bloodlines was the second game. But both were equally as bugged as each other. And everybody was looking forward to it being a vampire in an open world type thing. But at the time that it came out, it was just a buggy mess. And it really suits that criteria of janky when I think about it. Giant Citizens Kabuto is also one that rings a bell, but the one that rings a bell the most after Vampire Bloodlines will be Lion Gates or Bullfrogs Black or White, which was a god game, and you had these animals that you could control. A cow, I think there was. A monkey there was. I think there was one other. But the control system was very, very weird. I had a vibrating mouse. I've still got it. that was specific to that game, so that when you moved your hand over something that you wanted to pick up, it would rumble, it would vibrate in your hand. That was interesting. But again, like I said, all these things that come together made it very janky. So those would be my games, and those would be my movie adaptions. So with that, we'll move on to Martroid. And I'm just going to say thank you very much, Colin. Absolutely marvellous. And I really do love your channel. Looking forward to your next blog and your 4K moving forward into. That's such good news. So we move to Martroid, and he's put, I must say, I do think that the Switch 2 looks very nice, but I can't see myself getting one at those sort of prices. Although I would like to play Martroid Prime 4 at some stage, so you never know. Anyway, cheers for another superb Vblog, and the best for you to your mum. No, thank you very much, and I'll pass that on. And I can't agree more with what you're saying here. It's absolutely brilliant. The Switch 2 does indeed look very nice. And again, I ummed and ahed and going, do I really want it day one? Am I that interested that I want a day one edition? We'll see as we get closer to the time, but I'm not in a big rush. So I want to say to that. So that answers his question. And again, I'm just going to check on my mum, because I'm very concerned that we've got to this stage of the morning. It's now early afternoon, actually, just turned. And I haven't had the nurse. So I do want to just see if they've turned up and I've missed it. So it won't be a moment. And the occupational nurse is here, so that's good. And I've lost my place a little bit, but at least the next one that I think I did read out is only 2 lines, and it was from Martroid. And thanks very much, Martroid. He's put, I must say I do think that the Switch 2 looks very nice, but I can't see myself getting one of those at that sort of prices. And I'm in sort of an agreement with you, although I would like to play Metroid Prime 4 at some stage, so you never know. Anyway, cheers for another superb blog, Del, and all the best to you and your mum. And yeah, I'd like to play sort of like the next sort of like Mario World type game. Not really into the kart too much, but that'd still be a nice game. But I can wait. So salute, my friend, and we move to the last 2. Down the Rabbit Hole's the next one. My friend Down the Rabbit Hole. He's put, glad to hear another update, Del. As for the pricing of the Nintendo Switch 2, personally I think the company is bonkers to ask that much, including game prices. But having said that, I'm not the right person to comment. I have mentioned several times my huge disappointment with how Nintendo handled the success of the Wii, and since those times I've never bought a Nintendo console again. I can easily walk past this latest announcement. Sorry to hear your relations with your sister are a bit troubled, but in a way I'm relieved. I too have struggles getting along with certain close relatives, and I often thought the problem was me. Turns out we all get harder to unite with our closest as we age, and I'm glad I'm not just singular to my experience. Yeah, we tolerate each other and things are softening a little bit, but it still hurts some of the things that were said, and I think that those are going to be the hardest things to let go. So totally in agreement with you there. To cleanse the palate, here's a random gaming question. Do you ever skip intros in games? I admit I do. If I'm recording a gameplay, because I don't want to bore the audience with a 10-minute story intro, and when I'm trying out a game for myself, just for fun, I always watch the intro once and almost never watch it ever again. Apparently some folks never watch game intros and then get mad when something critical to the story is not clear to them if it was in the intro. It's a difficult one, isn't it? And I have to say, intros are a bit of a bane. I did, if you noticed, and you would have noticed this, that when it came to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the whole of the first nearly 2 hours was intro, with me doing bits and bobs, but it was next to nothing. But it's integral to the story, so I played that it all the way through. And in some ways, Atomfall was the same, but that was much shorter. So I was pleased to sort of like just let those go. But when it does come to intros, I tend to skip them. If I'm playing by myself and I've got plenty of time, I've got no issue with it because it can immerse you in the storyline. But it's one of those hit and miss things when it comes to recording stuff for your channel, you know. And I'm in that dilemma like you. Do people want to see the intro or do they not want to see the intro? Is it just going to lengthen the video that I'm doing, and are they going to turn off in droves because they've seen that intro a million times on others' channels? Sometimes I feel I should flip a coin. I really do. But yeah, I do find them to be a bit of a bane. I think is the best way to look at it, and it is a dilemma. So, oh God, bloody messages again. But it says there that it wasn't to do with my mum, so I'm going to move on. And the last one is Seb's Place, but I'm just going to say salute to my friend down the rabbit hole. You want to check out his channel, it's brilliant. There was so much good stuff this week, and you'll hear about that in a bit. But we moved to Seb's Place, and he's put a much more positive blog, Del, which is pleasing. Glad you are getting the help you need. Feel for you, mate. Take care. And no, that's really appreciative. Even one lines like that, I really do. I'm appreciative of. It's just amazing that people wish me well and wish my mum, more importantly, well, because that's who it's all is about at the moment. My mum and getting her well. So that's the end of the shout-outs. And like I said, it was going to be a bit shorter, but we're still over an hour at the moment. And as you know, when we get past the shout-outs, we get to the watched on YouTube. And I tell you what, as much as my friends that are very busy and have got things going on in their lives at the moment, a lot of the big channels are also not doing much at the moment. So many in here I've got question marks or there was nothing there. So I'll just take a swig. And we get to the first section, which is watched on YouTube. And as you know, there are a couple of stalwarts that I basically watch every week, and they are This Week in Retro, Tecmo, Gadget Show, and Chronologically Gaming, which my good friend Denny introduced me to last year. And here we go. With This Week in Retro, there were 3 subjects as normal. The titles were 10 is the magic number, Shenmue, and Chiptune Heaven. And to be quite honest, 2 of those I already knew of. They were all over the news. Shenmue was, I'm pretty sure it doesn't really spoil anything here or take you away from watching This Week in Retro, was all about a most influential game list, which was a nightmare and a stupid thing to do, really, because the titles that were mentioned there, you have to ask and say, influenced who? And if you've gotten the title Shenmue, you'll know what title was number 1, and you have to look at yourself and go, that was influential compared to what? And then when you look at it and you think of how many games there were that were maze games, or games that were shoot 'em ups, or games that gave you progressive firepower and all of that sort of stuff. What the hell did Shenmue do? Yeah. And Chiptune Heaven is an old documentary which I watched as well this week, thinking it was new, but I'd seen it before. So, yeah. This Week in Retro covered sort of like what I was already going to cover in mine. They just got there earlier. So, no problems there, but always a fantastic watch. And it's got to be every week for me a watch for This Week in Retro. Tecmo did nothing. But as you know, he's been struggling with his own health issues. So that didn't surprise me one bit. But what did surprise me was the Gadget Show had nothing, where they've been putting out 2 or 3 videos per week. There was nothing this week. So very, very weird, that one. Don't know why. Maybe it's because it's, like I say, Easter week holiday for the kiddies. So maybe they're taking the opportunity to have a bit of a holiday themselves. And then chronologically gaming, we are now, hey ho, at the beginning of December 1982. December's going to be a massive month for games across the whole of the world that were introduced during the month of December 82. It's the holidays. It's bound sure to be. It's the time where most people sell all their hardware and sell the majority of their software ready for Christmas Day. So in 82, it'd have been no different. It would have probably been the number one requested toy is a console or a computer in 82, even though they were very expensive then. So you're going to see a bumper crop of what was released in December. So there's the 4 top ones that I watch. So what else did I watch? Well, I watched a channel called Gem Film Library, and that was what I mentioned before, the Chiptune Story. Creating retro music 8 bits at a time. And of course, you know it was old because you can actually see the people that were interviewed in it, like Rob Hubbard. They were much younger, and Ben Dalglish, sadly now missed, all being interviewed. And you're just going, yeah, this is old, but it's nice to see it again. It's nice that it's getting attention again. It's a very, very good documentary. I'm happy to mention it again. Definitely go out there and watch that one. It's a special documentary worth your attention. Then there was a channel called Bytes and Bits, and this came up in my alert tube for YouTube, and the title for their video was called Time for an Adventure, and it's another one of those documentaries that we don't see covered too much, which is the text and graphic adventure. And this one is an hour or so long, and it just goes into how big an industry it was for adventure games. I can't stress enough just how big that industry was. When you look at even Zap, they had a whole section called The White Wizard that reviewed adventure games and gave you hints and tips on how to complete them. It was huge, and I was a big fan and a part of that. I loved it. I loved adventure games. Probably a simpler time where I had more time on my hands as well. So that's definitely worth a watch. Then there is a channel called Memory. And this was interesting because I'm looking at diagnosing my PC because it's getting old now. And I'm wondering sometimes whether some of the problems are to do with hardware or whether they're software. But Memory did an article called Every Windows User Should Know About This Free Windows Utility. And yes, after watching the video, you damn well should. It's a de-bloatware piece of software for Windows 10 and 11. But instead of using scripts, it uses a telnet service that you switch on. And basically the utility is running virtually in the background, and you can tell it to do certain stuff. And it will de-bloat Windows. It will make it smoother and a bit more and sharper, a bit more snappier. And definitely doesn't have any viruses that I could find or any loopholes that you need to jump through. So yes, watch that video. It's the video channel is called Memory, and it was called Every Windows User Should Know About This Free Windows Utility. Then there was another computer video that I watched on a channel called How Fix It. And this is the whole name of the title. It was SSD versus HDD versus NVMe versus mSATA versus M2 storage. So it basically was a description of all of the different formats of hard drives that you can buy, the pros and cons of them, how they interact with each other, and which one might be best for you. And it explains why there are different formats and what the different speeds are and so forth. So yeah, definitely if you're ever wondered what the different formats were and are, and how you can make your machine faster, definitely watch that video. And the last one of the watched on YouTube is a channel called Overlord DVD, and this one was just put in for a laugh, really, because the actual episode was called Star Trek Censored on Paramount Plus. Shatner confirms some of the episodes that are censored are beyond recognition. So this is all about censorship, and it's a guy who's dressed up like an alien, superimposed on a virtual background, talking about how the BBC, the Paramount Plus channel's repeats of Star Trek are warped in regards to the fact that they've censored such an awful lot that the episodes are now beyond recognition. And William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk, is in full agreement with this. So it's definitely worth your attention watching that video. Like I say, again, I've just had a knock on the door, so I'll be back in a moment. I do apologise. And we continue, and we're going now into film, TV, and soundtrack YouTube, where it's mostly film and soundtrack and TV orientated. And we get to my friend Ian Hill, the Ramblings, and as you know, I do a live stream with him. And oh my God, how much does he take up of my pad? I keep saying it every week, but bloody hell, man, Jesus, slow down a little bit, eh? Anyway, he's done the top 5 crime films 2023 to 2024 plus 1931 to 1934, so he's going back even earlier. He did a film review of Spring and Port Wine, which was very interesting. I haven't heard of that film before, with James Mason. He did a review of Doctor Who Terminus, and if you remember rightly, last week it was Mordred Undead, and Mordred Undead is a trilogy, really. That whole section of Doctor Who in that period was a trilogy, with the next one being Enlightenment. So Terminus is Nissa's last story. Spoilers, sorry. Then you've got an unboxing of a film called Life Force, which you must have heard on my channel several times, Life Force. I bought that as well. Only his arrived earlier, the little bastard. He got his before I did. He did a review of X-Files Season 3, Episode 22. And did a review of that, and then he did a live with me, like I said. So my God, how much stuff is there? You've got a whole week's worth of stuff to get through when you go there. I mean, it's amazing. So definitely worth a watch. If you can, please like any of his videos if you like them, and subscribe if you haven't. It really is worth your while. We moved to my friend Playtendo Guy, but unfortunately there's nothing to report, though. I didn't see any shorts, I didn't see any videos. He might be, again, having a week, and I don't blame him. He's got a girlfriend. He needs to sort of, like, have a bit of a life for himself as well, so good for him. But it is along with some of the other video channels that I've already mentioned, that where there's nothing there. So I'm glad that, you know, some people are taking a little bits of break. We need it. We need that break. And it's the same with Mondo Chelovek Movies. Now, he did do something, but it's a members only. You know what I mean? It's one of those ones where you wouldn't see it unless you're a member. So if you can and you find it important, please go and be a member of his channel. I must admit, if I had the money, if I didn't have so many things going on with my mum, I would definitely do that, because I do need to know more about horror films. So it's probably worth my while. But moving on, we've got Through the Lens, my friend Josh, and he did 2 videos. He did a review of a film, Death of a Unicorn, and he also did Why Magazine Dreams is Important. So Death of a Unicorn is mental, is one video. Why Magazine Dreams is Important is the other one. Both definitely worth your while. He does reviews in such a way that it's sort of like unique to other YouTube videos. I can't express it very well, but if you ever watch one, you'd go, wow, that was interesting. And why don't other YouTubers do it that way? So informative. So that's how I look at his video channel. Definitely worth your while. Muckman Movies. He did March movie pickups and a tribute to Val Kilmer. Yes, because as you know, we sadly had the loss of Val Kilmer in the last week and a half. And he's been abroad to Vietnam. And basically, he wanted to show off what his March pickups were. So that was very interesting. I love that because he buys a lot. He buys also steelbooks, and I like to see ones that I haven't bought. So it's very interesting for me, and I think you'd get a good kick out of it as well, especially as he covers a lot of films that you wouldn't normally buy. You know, a lot of foreign or world films that are worth picking up and having a look at. Please go and have a little look at his channel and like and subscribe if you can. We've got Jim Jam Movies, my friend Jim Jam, who lives just up the road really for me. You know, it's about 40-50 miles, so it's closer than a lot of my friends. He did a network titled Swap Shop with his friend Scotty Movies. As you know, anybody who knows Jim Jam's channel, he's very big on Netflix as a distributor of TV and films. He's got a very big and extensive collection of their titles, and it continues to flourish and grow, so definitely worth a watch there. Did You See That? Did 2 film reviews, a film called Drop that was set out, which came out in 2025, and one called Shadow of God, another 2025 release. 2 films I know very little about, so was very interesting to watch. And the soundtrack I've been listening to on my walk has come from a score by Jerry Goldsmith called The Edge, which is a great film. It's a film with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin. And seriously, if I could get a sensible value, and also in Britain, I would buy that film, The Edge. I've got it on DVD, but I haven't got it on Blu-ray. And the score is sublime. It's an absolutely lovely score. I mean, my God, the sweeping harmonies that are in the main titles and end credits, brilliant. Just alone, that main title, I could put it on repeat. But if you go on YouTube and you type in The Edge, Jerry Goldsmith, you can listen to every single track that's on the CD. And just listen to how beautiful that score is. It's absolutely gorgeous. So that covers the soundtrack part of my section there of films, TV and soundtracks. And we're on the last section, which is Game and Tech YouTube, which is mostly all the people that are in my Discord or my friend Mainmeister's Discord and are close friends of mine. And the first one we've got is Down the Rabbit Hole, who we mentioned earlier on, and his 3 videos this week were trying Rush the Rock game using his Mad Cat steering wheel. So he's got this steering wheel that fits on your lap, and he's trying different race games to see how they work on various different platforms and see whether the steering wheel was worth the money. And so far, I think it has been. He also an unreleased Lynx game he previewed, right? An unreleased Lynx game called Alien, which really intrigued me, and it looked gorgeous. Honestly, I wouldn't have believed it was on the Lynx. It was brilliant. Love that. And the last video he did just last night, so I just managed to fit it in. And that was finding the good in bad Star Trek episodes. And I have to say, it can be one of the most daunting things in the world is watching an old Star Trek episode that is your least favourite. It's because it's bloody awful. And he put out a mapping for himself of which channels do I like, which episodes do I like, and why don't I like these ones, and are there any redeeming features? For which I'm so glad he did manage to find some. And the more I thought about it, the more I was going, do you know what? Yeah, I like that one. That part of that episode I liked, you know. So it's not all that bad. There is good in bad. So thank you very much for that, for Down the Rabbit Hole. We moved to Robert's Retro Gaming, and oh my god, he's done a lot this week as well. He's done No Man's Sky episode 33. He's done Minecraft Play episodes 136 and 137. He did Unicom, Lorian's Tomb, Lady Labyrinth, and Cytromedia, all on the Atari 8-bit gameplay. And the only thing I'm missing this week is some more Subnautica. He hasn't done that for a couple of weeks. Maybe he's taken a hiatus of it. But I was really enjoying that series, and it was great. But maybe I was enjoying it too much because I bought it for him at Christmas. So we have to bear that into consideration, don't we? Then we've got Steve's Gaming, and as I said, he's on a break at the moment. Very sad what's going on in his life at the moment. We wish him well. Anything that we can do, Steve, let us know if you're watching. We all want to stay in touch with you. We all want to help. So I can't do my salute, you bastard. Or maybe I can. Your channel's just too fucking good. Brilliant fellow. I miss him a lot. Then we've got Colin Jones, aka Ponder, who did 2 videos this week. He did a Tubers High Score challenge on a game called Hang On in the arcade. And he did a Mainmeister High Score challenge, Kerfuffle, and that was for a game called Jump Bug, which I'm familiar with, but never really played it much myself. That was interesting, and it's so easy to make mistakes in that game, I could tell. So I don't think I'd get very far. Brilliant videos. Definitely worth your time going and watching. Then you got 20th Century Gaming, who did a Commodore 64 video of a game called White Viper, which was on a budget label at the time. And I tell you what, it looked really, really good. Definitely up my street. I'd have played that. And the last one is Wee Bob, who's done a community question like he's done in the last couple of weeks. And the community question is your top 5 jaw-dropping music in games, TV, and music. And all I can say to that is, oh my God, how big a thing would that be with my age being what it is, and the videos that I've picked out through the years, and how many times I've bought the album of that soundtrack to work with my collection. And soundtracks is one of my big passions. So, of course, soundtracks was always there for me. And that concludes the paper part of the blog. I'm just going to pause, and then when I come back, we'll be doing some videos and what I've bought, and that'll be the end. So see you on the other side in just a moment. And we're coming to the end of the blog because we've done the written section, and there's just some stuff that's arrived this week. So let's move to the overhead cam, shall we? There we go. And I mentioned this already before because Ian Hill, The Ramblings, got his before mine, but there's Life Force from Arrow, which is a great film. I've bought this on just about every format going. It's one of my favourite films. And it's got the theatrical and the international cut on there. And it's slightly different from the American one that I bought. So I'm glad to have it in my collection. So that's marvellous. Glad that's in my collection. We've got a steelbook that's arrived. Look, it's Sonic the Hedgehog 3. There we go, in 4K. Nice looking steelbook. It came in multiple different ones. I think there's one with Knuckles on the front. I just bought the one. I'm not going to be buying both. That one was my favourite of the designs. It's got the actual main character on the front for a start. Then we've got 2 collector sets, both by, I believe, David Cronenberg. This one is Scanners, an old favourite of mine from the 80s. Marvellous. This one is synonymous for a particular scene that I won't ruin for you. But look at that. I mean, it's a huge collection there. It looks like it's got a lot of extras here. I'll leave that there so you can freeze frame that for the limited edition contents. That's marvellous. Lovely artwork on there. great. And the last one is another David Cronenberg, and it's The Brood. And I really do love the colour on that. It pops really well. Again, just as much content in this one as Scanners. And I'll let you freeze frame that so that you can see it. Looking forward to revisiting those. And we'll move, therefore, to media playback. And you're going to watch some trailers. Yes, I've done a couple of trailers for you this week. I'm going to mute the camera. And you can basically watch these trailers. Hope you enjoy them. I'll be back on the other side.
I would like to scan all of you in this room, one at a time. I must remind you that the scanning experience is usually a painful one, sometimes resulting in nosebleeds, earaches, stomach cramps, nausea, sometimes other symptoms of a similar nature. At this point, I'd like to call for volunteers. Fine. Just sit right here, please. Now, I'd like you to think of something specific.
Do I have to close my eyes?
It doesn't matter.
All right, yes, I have something.
The mind force. Scanners. Their thoughts can kill.
They come from the unknown, and they're here now, hiding, waiting to strike. You can feel their presence all around you. Never before have you come this close to the edge of terror. Never before have you faced anything so strange and sinister, so bizarre and unnerving. Never until now. David Cronenberg's The Brood.
Are you ready for me, Frank? I seem to be a very special person now. I'm in the middle of a strange adventure.
I want to go with you wherever you go.
Do you?
Yes.
Then look!
The Brood. You can run. You can hide and hope they won't find you. But you won't escape. Once unleashed, the Brood will destroy anyone who gets in their way. David Cronenberg's ultimate experience in inner terror, starring Oliver Reed and Samantha Eggar. The Brood. They're waiting for you.
The incredible, shrinking man.
You are getting smaller. There's no medical precedent for what's happening to you. I simply know that you're getting smaller.
I want you to start thinking about us, our marriage. Some awful things might happen.
As long as you've got this wedding ring on, you've got me.
This is Orson Welles speaking. I have 45 seconds to tell you about something I think you'll remember the longest day you live. It's about a man named Scott Carey. A few months ago, he was 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 190 pounds. Today, he's 2 inches tall, and you can hold him in the palm of your hand. Now he lives in a world where he must fight for his life, a world where a friendly house cat is a predatory monster.
Incredible because it's almost beyond imagining. Incredible because every hour he gets smaller and smaller. Incredible because every moment the terror mounts.
And there we have it, just 3 short trailers for you in the old style of how we used to do trailers. So much better, I think, sometimes than the ones that we've seen. And again, that's nothing to do with my mum. But I really enjoyed sort of like looking those ones up. You know, 2 of them you can see were arrivals this week, and one that I watched on television this week, which was The Incredible Shrinking Man. And I remember watching that the first time and was just mesmerized. I just loved it. I thought the idea of it all absolutely brilliant. And of course the end sequence, marvelous, absolute astonishing end sequence. It just gives you food for thought. And that's it for this blog. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's a little bit shorter than normal. I hope though you've enjoyed it. I'm hoping to get more stuff out. I'm going to spend some time with my mum. I hope you caught up now with how things are going with my mum. Next week is going to be a bank holiday. Maybe I'll be able to get some more stuff out. Maybe I'll be spending a lot more time and getting my mother up to scratch. A number of concerns are on my mind with my mother, and that is when the nursing ends, how are we going to cope, me and my sister? Finances are stretched. Work is stretched. But I've got no qualms or about that I'm not going to be able to cope. I feel the only thing I'm missing at the moment now is I am tired. I need probably a little bit more assistance, but I could always want as much as I want, you know, to excuse a pun. But, you know, at some point I've got to get help, and, you know, it will happen. And I'm empowered by the comments that come through to me. So, You're going to see some more trading card stuff. You're going to see some more gaming stuff. And my heart goes out to all those that are going through a bad time at the moment. And thanks to all those people that have contributed to YouTube this week that have kept me entertained. And with that, I'll say salute. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.